What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel and another Outriders video. This is a little bit different, something a little bit different today. This was actually suggested by one of my viewers, shout out to Dragon Hunters for this, is to actually do a tier list of the 18 expeditions that we have in the game right now, and to sort of give them like a hot or not kind of list. I have some different categories that I'm calling them, but just to sort of discuss which ones I think are my favorite expeditions, which ones are not so much my favorite, but also just to get some feedback from you guys and have you put in the comments what you think about that. So without any further ado, let's jump over to the tier list as I've already prepared it. Now, as mentioned, this is all 18 of the expeditions that are currently in the game, including Eye of the Storm. And when it comes to how I sort of set up this tier list, well, first of all, let's look at the 4 categories that I have here. So I suppose the best category would be fun and easy, because those are two very, I suppose, subjective categories, but two things that are nonetheless would definitely make an expedition cool, is if it's fun and if it's easy, because that means you can do them very fast and you can do them without, you know, sort of like having to sweat your ass off to get through the expedition. And my second category is decent, which is kind of like a normal, like, you know, it's okay, it's nothing great, or, you know, anything like that. Then in my third and so second worst category is hard as fuck, but okay. And then last but not least, we have yuck. Now, when it comes to the rating system here, something that we also have to bear in mind is I think my rating system would have been a bit different if we were still living in the post New Horizons world of Outriders, where we had timers in expeditions. Now, with the fact that expedition timers can be completely turned off and you can still earn the same amount of rewards, it really does allow you to play the expeditions at your pace. And if you can do that, then you can most often you can allow yourself to not get into very bad situations where you can potentially be killed, thereby meaning that, especially if you're playing solo, that you have to basically replay the expedition, which is, I don't think, a lot of fun for anybody. It definitely sucks making it all the way to the end of an expedition and then getting dropped by the boss and then having to do the whole thing over again. But I digress. Coming back to how my rating system really works here, is it's a little bit difficult because I'm approaching it from a couple of different angles. So as you can see, with the top criteria, they're being fun and easy, it means that some expeditions, regardless of time or anything like that, are just more fun than others, whether it is the set piece itself or the different combinations of enemies that attack you or anything like that. And then some expeditions are just easier than others. Some have a high density of difficult enemies together. Paxian homestead, I'm looking at you. And some of them have geometry like pillars and, you know, corridors and things like that that you can exploit and essentially keep yourself out of trouble a lot. A very good example of that would basically be Chem. And so I'm really trying to sort of take all of these factors into consideration. And then one last little sprinkling over the top as well is the fact that some expeditions obviously can be done quicker, no matter what, whether you're racing for time or not, and offer more drop pod resources and more rolls at legendary loot at CT15 than others. And that generally correlates to the difficulty as people can fly C of that expedition and the time input, or rather the time, you know, requirement that that expedition asks from you. So I did a video on this a while back where I essentially came to the conclusion that there's just, you know, like a straightforward winner, and we'll discuss that today as we get to it. A straightforward winner in terms of efficiency and the net gain of drop pod resources and rolls on legendaries plus purple gear that you get from that. So there's a clear leader in that regard. But generally speaking, there's a bunch of these that you can sort of play, and the reward is kind of like the same for your time, and that's it. Anyway, enough with all that fucking preamble. Let's get to the list. So we're gonna just do it straight as we have it in the categories over here, and that means the first one that we start off with is Heart of the Wild. Now, Heart of the Wild is an interesting one for me because it used to be an expedition that for some reason, because I'm a fucking masochist, I really liked. As time has passed on though, I have to, unfortunately, especially now that I have some other favorites, I have to put this under yuck. It's generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of the expeditions that require you to hold an area while, you know, some fucking monolith or whatever ticks down. And yeah, I just, of course, Heart of the Wild has this, but it also has 2 fairly large rooms with flyers and fucking crawlers that can target you all the way across the map, and you can kind of like go up on the sides and avoid them by the waterfalls, but then you get fucking, like I said, slammed by a whole bunch of like big perforo and things like that. So generally speaking, it is a difficult expedition if you don't control the spawns very well, and also you can just get the fuck swarmed out of you. So definitely if you're playing solo, it can be one of the more tougher ones, but all in all, it's just like for the amount of effort and the fact that you get to what you think is the last room and then it ends up being the fucking second last room, is just like, ugh. So yeah, unfortunately, Heart of the Wild, damn you, you go to yuck. Okay, and that gets us next. It gets us to Frontline. Now Frontline is of course the home base of Moloch, who is probably the scariest boss in this game. Moloch is just deceptively fucking powerful at like one-shotting, and essentially you can think you're in charge of that final fight with him, and then he can just flip the script on you, teleport on top of you, shoot you in the back with a fireball, and fucking, you know, that's all she wrote. This is especially lethal when it comes to playing the game solo, because that last room can be a little bit unforgiving, especially if you are trying to heal yourself a lot and you are getting spaced out between the guys that appear sort of like, now looking from Moloch's perspective, on the left you have some guys that come running through a fucking garage door or something, and then of course he comes with a bunch of elites behind him, comes through, and then some more join the fight later on, and then you get some guys down to the right that he also. So if you like, for instance, I find that map a lot easier to do with a techno, because you can essentially create these fire lanes and you can use the geometry and the cover and you can sort of shoot that, but then and because you can so directly heal yourself so easily with techno by just getting those shots and dealing that damage, where I've died a whole bunch of times with pyro with this by simply being out of position, being cooldowned on my skills and not being able to deal enough damage, and then sort of like getting trapped between one of Moloch's teleportation circles and, you know, getting fucking shot. Now, that being said though, I actually like Frontline a lot. I think it's a very well put together little expedition. I think there's maybe one or two many waves right at the beginning there. It feels like you spent like 80% of the run in that first fucking area, but all in all, I don't mind it at all. But like I said, it is hard as balls. So unfortunately, that's gonna have to define it to the hard as fuck but okay category, which is not bad. That's not a bad place to be, especially considering that most people hate the ever-loving, you know, shit out of Frontline. So then straight into the crazy shit that gets us to Eye of the Storm. Now, Eye of the Storm for me is, I'm sure a lot of people will put it under hard as fuck but okay. Some people might even put it under yuck. It is extremely rewarding to do Eye of the Storm due to the fact that you get the legendary choice, and also due to the fact that with a well-geared team, a well-oiled team that understands the mechanic, you know, you're having like one debuff character, most likely a debuff pyro, one, you know, crit machine, like something like a techno, and then fucking whomever else wants to tag along. Another debuff pyro would be ridiculous. Another techno would also be crazy, but anybody can really come along. Level ones are welcome too, because essentially that little engagement you have there with the debuff character and the technomancer is more than enough to kill your Gog in like, I don't know, fucking 2 seconds, and then you can just get those sweet rewards, and of course a massive amount of drop pod resources. So I'm just gonna go ahead and file Eye of the Storm under decent. I think it might be hard until you understand that basically, just like most encounters in this game, the more aggressive and more damage you can deal straight off the rip, the less problems you have down the line. If you let your Gog live too long and he starts bringing I forget their fucking names, dudes with the big swords, he starts bringing them in, then you got some bullshit on your hands. So obviously if you can just tap him out right at the beginning there, then no problem. And that's why it's, other than that, I mean, it's basically one big arena with 3 fucking circles in. So it's definitely not the most beautiful like designed expedition, but I mean, that is what it is. Okay, so next up we have Coliseum. I like Coliseum a lot. I think Coliseum is really cool due to the fact that you essentially fight almost all of the different, you know, enemy types in the game. It's got massive open areas where you can essentially control the fight, and you've got those long lanes that the monsters run down at you and everything like that. So I really like Coliseum. I don't have like a whole bunch to say other than that. I think Coliseum is not, it takes a while to complete it. It's not one of the fastest ones, but I think you can play it extremely safe, which makes it extremely easy. And like I said, fighting almost all of the enemy types in the game in one expedition is definitely fun. Plus it's really kind of good looking. I like the desert and all that shit, so definitely Coliseum is my first fun and easy one. Then when we get over to City of Nomads, now City of Nomads is of course one of the new expeditions that was added with New Horizon, and it's actually probably the best one out of the ones which were added, because it's the one that's got all the Easter eggs in, and you know, shooting, you know, the different things during the expedition, which opens up that final room and that final boss. So I really like City of Nomads. I think it's well put together. It can be a little bit difficult, especially that final boss. If you open up the last one, if you are going in there solo and you're not ready to really put it on him, then that dude's gonna fuck you up. But I like what they tried to do here. I said it, technically speaking, all of the new expeditions that came with New Horizon have some form of an Easter egg, but they really went in deep on City of Nomads with the Easter eggs, and I really like that. I've always said it, especially when New Horizon came out, this was one of my favorite things about the fact that they, with the new expeditions, they brought this in. I like the thing of like artificially wanting you to rerun them because you missed the Easter egg, or there's another item you can get, or there's a hidden area you can get into. I definitely, we need more of that shit for sure. I mean, how fucking cool would it be if they went back and they revised all of the expeditions and added something like this? Even if it's just 2 or 3 additional things that you can shoot, and then it drops you an extra piece of loot, or gives you, I don't know, gives you like an emote, or gives you a different flag, or, you know, anything like that. A lot of these things, people really go for that. I'm one of them. I mean, I'm doing the content in any case. If you're giving me extra incentive to do that, I mean, why the fuck wouldn't I do that? So, but I think, look, City of Nomads is definitely decent. I don't think it's fun and easy. I mean, it's fun for me, but it's definitely not easy, and I wouldn't rate it next to Coliseum. I enjoyed Coliseum a whole lot more than I like City of Nomads, but it's definitely decent, and it's also kind of good looking. So yeah. Then next up we have Chem Plant. Now, I mean, Chem Plant, I don't have to talk too much about that. I think most people know, especially people that have been coming to the Thursday night Outriders streams. Shout out to those streams, by the way. Come check those out. It's a community event, starts every Thursday at 8 o'clock CET. And we hang out together as a community, and we fucking shoot stuff and drink beer and talk shit, and basically just help each other get more drop pod resources and loot. It's fantastic. We'd love to have you, so keep that in mind. So Chem Plant is, I would say, top 3 for me, just due to the fact that it's ridiculously easy to do. I mean, from the fact that you can skip almost, you know, like maybe 1 or 2 minutes worth of fighting by just doing the lift jump thing. I think with the way that you can move in between the rooms and everything like that, you can set up like these kill boxes and everything like that, where you can do it relatively safe without getting killed. And I really like the mob density. It really makes you feel powerful when you essentially nuke down a whole room of elites that come out behind the lift door or something like that. So I really like it. I like the fact that it kind of seems like you're going into this lab, and you know, you're finding like some hidden experiments and shit like that. So it's pretty sweet. Chem Plant will always be fun and easy for me, and definitely one of my favorites. Next, Boomtown, Dr. D's house. So probably I think it's safe enough for me to say that Boomtown is the expedition that you can do the fastest out of all of them, and I think this is recognized by People Can Fly due to the fact that it's basically the one that offers the least rewards for your effort. And it's basically, you know, 2 big not boss rooms, but 2 big mob rooms and then a boss room. That's basically what it is. It features, of course, the club scene, which is really awesome. I think when people were starting to realize the power of the Akari set and being able to sweep an entire area and basically clear it out with Ash Blast and Overheat, it was one of the most impressive things. I used to get a kick out of people coming into the streams and then, you know, seeing us run down into that area in a trios and just wipe that whole area out. And people are like, holy shit, how did you do that? Of course, by now everybody and their grandmother has the Akari set farmed out, and they have that set. And I mean, we've since moved on to better shit, but it's still pretty sweet, and it definitely is one of the things that made me fall in love with the pyro, to be quite honest. So I mean, the only reason why I don't put it in fun and easy, and why I put it in decent, is because the rewards are so low. It's noticeably low compared to the other expeditions. So while you can do it very fast and you can do it very impressively, you're also not being rewarded as much for that, just because of the fact that you're doing it so efficiently and so fast. And that's kind of like why I put it in decent. Other than that, I really like the boss entrance and all of that stuff. I mean, it's been memed to death. Like, everybody, you know, tests their builds on this poor fucking bastard as he comes jumping out of the top there. So I mean, it would be interesting to see some kind of statistic from People Can Fly where they can say, you know, how many times this dude's been killed. It's got to be in the gajillions by now, but in any case. Next up, we have Archways of Enoch. I mean, that in itself should be an indication to you where it's gonna fall in the list. I can fairly confidently say that Archways of Enoch and Time-Worn Spire, I guess, are the two expeditions that I've played the least. Now, I know that I think that there's this kind of consensus out there that Archways is one of the easiest expeditions, which may very well be so. I wouldn't say that I necessarily agree with that, but it's one of the ones which, at least to me, most people have come to and said, you know, back in the day when they were trying to do obviously gold clears when timers was still a thing, that Archways was very generous with allowing you to finish it in a gold time. Again, at that point, I think I was doing Heart of the Wild for maybe the same reason. But yeah, I've just never really enjoyed Archways of Enoch. I'm not a huge fan, and I gotta say, I think most of the audience, at least my audience that runs them with me, will often sort of say, oh, you know, I'd rather do like Stargrave, you know, or something like that. But definitely Archways for me is unfortunately a yuck. Okay, that gets us to Wellspring, another one of the new, well, I say new, geez, it's been with us for more than half a year now, but one of the expeditions that came with the New Horizon update to Outriders. So this one is of course famous for featuring that fucking shaman that murders, you know, so many people. Other than that, I think it's a really good looking expedition, and I also like, again, the enemy composition and how they come at you is really cool. Plus it does make you feel fucking badass killing that shaman. It is a tough fight. It has always been a tough fight, and a lot of people actually use him, not just him, but use him as kind of like a benchmark to just how much your character damage your character can deal, and how much damage your character can deal sustainably to be able to make it through a difficult encounter. He's definitely a good watermark for something like that, or fucking gear check if you want to call it that way. So if I then think about it in the same way how I discussed Frontline, I would say Wellspring would also be hard as fuck, but okay. Again, I think as an expedition, it's got a lot going for it. I like the way that it looks and the way that the expedition flows, and it feels very like fucking, you know, action heavy. I mean, all of them really do, but yeah. And but yeah, I would definitely stack that next to Frontline, just purely because of that fucking shaman that's also so just crazy. Then Marshall's Complex is also a New Horizon expedition. This one, of course, is like super stacked with like a whole bunch of fucking soldiers and human enemies. It can be tough in certain cases, and it's got this final room that you can do some crazy shit with if you're able to dump like a whole bunch of AoE damage and essentially, you know, in one small area. I definitely think that you can do some impressive stuff with that, and so therefore I would probably say Marshall's Complex is decent. I don't think it's necessarily very difficult. You have very large arenas that you fight these enemies in with cars and shit standing around and pillars and walls and stuff, so you can essentially, you know, kind of keep yourself out of trouble. But yeah, fun and easy, I think that would be a bit of a fucking stretch. And then the Drought Palace, Backstreet or Enoch's, you know, Backstreet Boys. This is where they hang out. It of course has that final entry, you know, room where the 5 sort of elites come walking out, and then, you know, to the tune of Backstreet's Back, of course, playing. I think this is a fantastic. It's one of my favorite ones. It's a fantastic expedition, once again, to test whether you're good at spawn control and moving through the arena and everything like that. There's a couple of, you know, sort of DPS checks where you have a bunch of elites and you want to kill them as fast as possible, because once they start popping their abilities and acting the fool, then you're going to get into trouble. So you got to fucking clear them fast. But that being said, there are, once you start understanding Drought Palace, for instance, even that final room with the 5 elites, there are ways for you to essentially make sure that you don't really get into too much trouble, because you can essentially run a train around the top, yada yada yada. I won't bore you with that, but that being said, I have to put it under fun and easy for me. I know that easy might be a bit of a stretch here, and it does have some tough parts. And even more so, Drought Palace has one of those things that I hate, which is powering up a fucking beacon to open up a door. But that being said, I have a lot of fun with it. It's one of the ones that I enjoy carrying people on, because that barrier part there is where I can then essentially stand and enemies will come funneling down the stairs and I can just blow them away. But I use this time to chat to the audience and just shoot the shit, get a couple of sips of beer in. And I mean, I gotta respect an expedition for allowing me to do that though, right? So then next we have Stargrave. Now, Stargrave is, according to my analysis, and the time spent to finish it versus the drop pod resources and the potential drops that you get out of it, the most efficient expedition to grind. That's in my own opinion. I made a video on it, which you can go find on my channel. But it's also coincidentally an expedition which I enjoy a lot. I like the fact, I like how it flows, and the fact that you get a good mix of monster enemies as well as human enemies. You know, even though it has 2 flyers in it, you know, fuck them, they're terrible. But it has a lot of trash enemies and stuff like that. You can pull off some amazing combos with like big area clears and everything like that. And that final room allows you to sort of like dip down and up and everything like that. And you can run like a little train, so hopefully you don't have too much trouble. And yeah, it's just, it's a fun expedition for me to play. So I definitely have to put it on the fun and easy. Especially once you start figuring it out, you can start doing it very fast. And it's actually a lot of fun. Scorch Lands is a funny one. Scorch Lands is a expedition that I've kind of come to like over time, for the sort of the same reason that I said Drought Palace, and that's that it's got these sort of times when you can like chill a little bit and you can kind of like go at your own pace and you can slow down a bit. Now, all in all, it is a super long expedition. It does take a while. It's probably the longest out of all of them, except for, you know, potentially Eye of the Storm if you're trying to solo that. But even then, Scorch Lands is probably longer. But I mean, it's a monster only map, so that in some cases I think people prefer that due to the fact our monsters will always come directly to you. They're not like human enemies that go try to fucking hide somewhere and snipe you, which is hyper irritating. So it does have a few flyers. It's got a fair shitload of brood mothers and everything like that. So if you have a problem dealing with that enemy type, then it could be a issue for you. But I think Scorch Lands is decent. I mean, it's again, especially if you do it in a group, it can be fun. It can be hyper chill. You guys can set up nice kill boxes if you're using like someone that's you know hitting stuff with thermal bomb, and another dude that's popping those and making them explode, and another guy that's freezing shit and everything like that. You can actually make it very easy and very fun for yourself. Next we have Paxian Homestead. This motherfucking expedition. So in my opinion, Paxian has the most difficult boss, and that is of course that vampiric fuck at the end. But it's also due to the fact that that final room has like a very unique enemy composition. You have the behemoths that come in, you have some flyers, you have of course this you know, fucking I for some reason now forget his name, but it's because I've yelled it so much out loud while cussing him out. So he's just, I mean, it's deceptive how much damage that elite can drop on you in a short amount of time, and he is kind of fucking tough. And it's exponentially worse if you are going into trios where he's just really like, he's able to take a whole bunch of damage. Now, of course, by now we have these really crazy builds that can just push out a stupid amount of damage onto the enemies. So it kind of like makes that point moot. But I think for the average person that just starts out the game and then it's kind of like grinding their way up to, you know, CT 15, and they're like, oh, what's this Paxian Homestead shit? And like, oh my god, like he's just, you know, off the fucking charts with that rage at the end, and also so hyper aggressive, right? So yeah, I gotta say, same reasons that I had Frontline and Wellspring in there. Now there's something to be said for challenging content, and that's cool though, because you kind of do want to challenge yourself, and it is hella satisfying killing that motherfucker. So, you know, be that as it may. But yeah, it's definitely hard, but okay, I would say it's not a bad looking expedition, and definitely those earlier rooms that you go through where you fight all the elites and everything like that is also kind of fun, unless you get like a bad combination between them. But you can control those lanes and spawns very well once you get to know them. So yeah, Mountain Outpost is kind of, again, one of these expeditions that doesn't seem to want to fucking end. And it has a super obnoxious final room where you have flyers that can really just punish you, and again crawlers, I think, that can lock you down as well. So you kind of like, especially if you are low geared and you're trying to farm up a higher CT, then you really have to run those hedges in the hills and kind of like stay out of trouble with that. But for the same reasons that I hate Heart of the Wild, or that I find Heart of the Wild like yuck now, I'm gonna have to do the same thing for Mountain Outpost. Like, fucking no thank you. Next we have Molt and Depths. Actually, it's a funny fucking situation here. I think all three of these next ones are gonna end up in the yuck category for kind of like the same reasons. But Molt and Depths has a final boss, and depending on which build you have, that final boss can be really, really irritating to fight, because there's no trash for you to or there's selective trash for you to reload your weapons on, plus he's setting all that shit on fire and everything like that. He's not hella tough by any measure, and you can probably drop him fairly well. And there are, of course, there's a Easter egg in this map as well, but it kind of like drags on forever as you're making your way through these mines and everything like that. And I just, it's again like one of those that I feel like, for the amount of reward you get out of Molt and Depths, it just takes a little bit too long. Then Marshland Caverns has the fucking monolith that you have to charge up. It's got some super obnoxious like spawns where you're getting pushed from different sides, as well as from a cliff up above where things are spitting at you and fucking putting poison on you. You're getting charged by Alpha Perforo, everything like that. It's one of the, in my opinion, tougher monster maps due to the way how the spawning works and everything like that. And I think it can be quite frustrating, especially if you make it to that last room, which is wide open. You're in the water, and then it has this fucking titanium grass situation where you're trying to, especially if you're playing a bullet class, you're trying to shoot enemies as they're running from halfway across the map to you, and half your bullets are hitting the fucking grass, so it's not registering and you're not reloading and everything like that. So all in all, just super frustrating. Definitely gets it into the yuck category. And then last but not least, Time-Worn Spire. Time-Worn Spire is weird, and I'm not saying it because it's the last one in the list, but it's like the least memorable expedition out of all of them. Like, I'm thinking to myself right now, because I have a general good memory of all of them, but this, of course, Time-Worn Spire, I believe, starts out with you going through the camp with all the fucking the human enemies, and then you make it into like the inner area where you pop open this gate, and then a whole bunch of fucking monsters come running through, and then you have a monolith you have to charge up. And then, of course, Time-Worn Spire has that super bad end room where it feels like it's 1 or 2 waves too long. And I've died there quite a lot, especially grinding up new characters to CT15, because the difficulty jump can be nuts, and because you get like some really chunky enemies there, plus again terrible flying fucking enemies, as usual. So yeah, Time-Worn Spire, that gets you to the yuck. You can get the hell out of here with that shit. So that is the final list right there. Of course, my fun and easy, as if you've been joining the streams for a while, you'll know that that's Coliseum, Chem, Drought, Palace, and Stargrave. Those are my favorites. But it's surprising for me that I've put Eye of the Storm, City of Nomads, Boomtown, Marshall's Complex, and Scorch lands into decent, which kind of means I like them a bit, but it makes no mistake, it makes complete sense that Frontline, Wellspring, and Paxian are hard as fuck, but okay, because they are hard as fuck. And I have no shame at all, in admitting that. But that's it for the list. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. We're almost at a half an hour, and that is as long as I want to keep you for this. But it is important to me that you guys let me know in the comments down below what you think of this list. What would you move around? What didn't I consider? Why do you think Archways of Enoch is fucking fun and easy? Let me know. I always like to have these discussions about everything regarding Outriders with you, because it is a lot of fun and it is a game that we all enjoy. Keep in mind the giveaway that we've got for the 12 copies of Worldslayer. Have a look in the description of this video for the Discord link to that. You simply go to my Discord, you go to the Outriders section, and there's a DLC giveaway channel where you can post your platform in, and you can win one of these 12 copies. Hopefully, I will do the draw on the last Thursday before the launch of Worldslayer, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the 23rd of June. But that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I said that already, but I meant it twice. It's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are in the world. And until next video, fucking cheers.
want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me.